Welcome to Designing Hollywood podcast show. I'm your host, Phillip Boutté Jr. A special thank you to our sponsor, Western Costume Company, for their continued support of the show. Designing Hollywood is dedicated to all things movies and celebrates the talented industry professionals from producers, cinematographers, and costume designers. The show covers all high-profile industry professionals who contribute to the magic of Hollywood, diving deep into the heart of the movie industry, exploring the artistry, craftsmanship, and stories behind the scenes that bring our favorite films to life. We're honored today to welcome Aaron Dennis, a visual effects animator at Disney Animation. Aaron not only helps bring magical environments and powerful visual storytelling to life, he's known for crafting memorable superpower moments with extraordinary detail. Some of his credits include X-Men Days of Future Past, Ghost in the Shell, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Off camera, he's a devout comic nerd and creator under the handle @ad_Zerker, blending his love of comics with the rigor of visual effects. His work pushes the boundaries of what animation can do to evoke wonder, tension, and storytelling. Welcome, Aaron.
Hi, thank you, Phil. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for being here with me. It's a crazy experience to finally meet in person, especially since we've worked on so many projects. I'm counting like 7 or 8.
Yeah, like it's insane, like how many people go into like working on like one feature and just not knowing, and like different locations throughout the world for the different departments, kind of thing. Like it's really cool to meet you. Very cool to meet you.
I want our audience to get to meet you and to get to know about you a little bit. So how did you come to this, or how did you come to this career? How did you get started? What were your inspirations? Just kind of like let us know about you.
No, for sure. For myself, so I've always been like an avid, like I just love stories in general. Like growing up, like comic books, anime, video game, like games, or like all kinds, like stories are really like get me, because I always feel, we live in the real world, and while it's cool, I like to go elsewhere, like to the escape, if even as a kid, like make believe or things like that. So growing up, always was a big fan of like art and just creating, and I like doing things that just aren't grounded in reality. So I went to Seneca College, so Seneca at York University, and they have an amazing visual effects program there. It took me a bit to get in, but I did. And during that time, one of my teachers, his name is Mahmoud, and it was an effects class. So like you learn all the parts of post-production, so like animation, lighting, effects, and then you kind of are able to, for a second term, go into or lean towards what most draws to you. But so in any case, we had the effects class, and my teacher, honestly, he opened up Maya, he pressed a button and just made like smoke, like just right off the shelf smoke. And I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like that was like that moment, because it just looked, and it's nothing. It was like not even like, it was just a little smoke simulation. And I was like,
right.
And then from there, it just took off, like just experimenting with that. And then finally, after graduating, also I'm from Toronto, by the way, so that's where the campus was.
Okay.
But after graduation, it took me a bit longer to land into the industry, just because I knew I wanted to do more work for myself and establish more things. And then finally, I sent my demo reel out to MPC Montreal when it was just opening up, and I was hired and left Toronto and moved to Montreal to work on my first feature film, which was X-Men Days of Futures Past. And it holds it holds a special place in my heart, just because like Toronto is known a lot for, like, there's a lot of television that goes on in Toronto, and it's really cool. But I knew I wanted to do film, and I not just like small film. I wanted to do like big features, and so like when I got the job offer for that, I was like over the moon. So
Days of Future Past is like a special one for me too, because it was like this time where the industry was kind of rapidly growing and shifting and changing. And for me, it was like a chance to, I remember the specifically for that one was a chance for me to help kind of like create and craft costume for my favorite character, which is Bishop. So I was I was so excited to get to do that concept.
Bishop was really in that film. I had a couple of shots with Bishop. So initially starting, I did a bunch of snow, because like, I swear one day, man, I feel I would love if people decided to have hero fights in like beautiful landscapes as opposed to
Yeah.
like, you know,
Snow,
you
rain.
but
Yeah.
like I understand it. Like you need the weather to like it brings the mood and like the severity, but also there's just so much snow in any case. But yeah, so some really cool shots with Bishop of just like with some snow interaction in there. Yeah, but like I loved the costuming in that too, and like
Mm-hmm.
the art design. Granted, sure, like first movie, so I'm like, you know, like fresh eyes. I'm just like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
god, like everything's just awesome. Um, but for real, I thought Bishop was really cool to finally see him on screen because like in like the comic books and even like as a kid watching on like the end of the cartoons, like Bishop could hold it down, you know?
Yeah, completely. I remember being completely nerded out because I was working with shout out to costume designer Luis Miggenbach, who's
Mm,
hired me multiple times in my career. But this one was a fun one because we were really kind of trying to explore what they could be in this place where they're no longer like this unified team and they're on the run and running, you know, for their lives
right.
basically. So it gave this opportunity to really like take the core root of the characters and then kind of push them in one way or another or a direction to show that there's been a time passage and there's been this huge event that's happened. Can you talk a little bit about like when you're breaking down, because that's kind of the key thing for all films is like the story element and kind of
Mm.
how you craft story into building effects.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's honest. I think that's one of my favorite parts of actually like just work in general. Um, like I've been very fortunate to work with like incredible supervisors across multiple studios. Like they really do help in terms of giving me guidance as to like the direction or tonality.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to do, and this comes back from like my love of just animation and like anime specifically, because I find that in Japanese anime, they're really it's incredible like how they can make a moment feel big or have
Correct.
meaning. And so when I'm doing effects, a lot of the time I really try to like get what it is like the characters are their intentions are in the shot, and then there are some times where my effects are simply just like in the background, like you know for snow or rain, right, where it's not really a thing. But when it's a much more like character driven, so for like Iceman, for example, when I was
Mm-hmm.
working on the bonus edition, the special edition DVD, and I was doing his ice spray, the moments of like when he's blasting the ice and trying to fill like the ice wall or create that like he's trying to stop the sentinels from like breaking in, that like the effects that I'm working on, they need to have it's about the feeling, not just technically creating them, but like the audience and for the story purpose, you need to feel that like they are being used and there's a sense of urgency and power in them. So for me sculpting it, a lot of it in like for myself is based on what I think feels right for the moment versus what technically needs to be done to get this functioning.
Yes.
um, right? Because uh, there are like I've worked with incredible artists who help me out a lot in terms of the technical side of things, right? And then on the flip side, I'm usually asked a lot of questions about like, does this feel right? How does this looking? Does it like you know like visually? Does it work within theme? So like in that collaboration, I'm so fortunate again with my team who I work with. Like we all like learn off of each other. But again, for myself, yeah, it's about the feeling. I really incorporate that into my structure of developing an effect. Like does it like get the point across of what this character is doing in that moment?
I want to stop too really quickly because I
Mm,
always take it for granted. So sometimes we have people that are new. Take back up really quickly and
yeah.
explain what an FX artist does
Oh,
specifically. Yeah, no. Because otherwise, if people don't know, they're going to be like, "What?" So, like, let's
no, for
explain
sure.
what
Yeah.
that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, the easiest way to describe it is we give superheroes their superpowers. That's like the
Yes.
easy. So if you were seeing Superman, um, our job is to give him his heat vision. Or
Mm-hmm.
in Moana 2, effects are as the team, we made the ocean. Anything that
Mm-hmm.
interacted with the water, or anything from magic to lightning, even simple things as if a character is walking on a beach, the sand interaction between their feet. So you can feel them connected to the world versus them just walking and you're like, oh, the sand's not moving. Like there's that disconnect. So we create the phenomena that really does help bring animation or visual effects um, from reality into like cohesiveness. um yeah, and it's like it's very tricky too, because you have to be really technical, because I wasn't good at math and physics in high school, but now like I use it every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome, like to understand to a much better degree of that. Like obviously I'm not a scientist, but um, like I play with gravity every day, right?
Yep.
I play with trigonometry and like places in 3D space of like if I create water and it has to go from here to here, right? How many frame like how fast is it going? How many frames will it take to get there? Kind of thing. Just and
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that will give me a different result visually. So like all of that. But yes, effects artists, we create natural and unnatural phenomena in
There we go.
right in films.
A good friend of mine is over at Disney. He's the visual effects, like he's head of visual effects, which is Marlon West. Do you know Marlon?
I just we just worked with Marlon.
Okay, so Marlon is great, but Marlon always talks about the fact that he's just like when he tries to explain what he does, he's like, pixie dust and water and like
Yep.
all the things in between, all of the effects, which is actually something that I think people take for granted in terms of like when they're watching a movie or you're watching effects and you see these things. Like for something like Moana, to understand that in animation you get nothing for free. And so it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, like let's put these digital characters in the water. It's like, no, you're creating every water, all the bubbles, the waves, like how they break, like all of it, and then the different temperatures and colors, like so it's a really overwhelming task, and I think that people don't really understand. I got a hint of it even working on Wakanda Forever,
Yeah.
because most up until that point in my career, I had pretty much been like a costume illustrator, like slash concept artist for costume, working specifically on like what people are wearing.
Hmm.
But Wakanda Forever was a project where I got hired by Ryan Meinerding to be on the visual development team
Awesome.
at the VizDev team. But the issue there, like especially from my experiences, like I'm used to drawing like halted, kind of standing back in
Yeah.
front people, and now I'm just like, how do I illustrate someone shooting water out of their hands? You know what I mean? Like, then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it's a whole, and then what does that look like? And how does the water move? And what's the coolest way for that water to move? And then how does it pool? Like, and then you really have to start learning, like you said, it becomes like the science of it. Like, you have to understand it. You're like, what are the properties of this? How does this thing move? What does it do? Like, what can't it do? And then, like, how do you break those? So you're like, how can I make fire move in a way that we've never seen it move before? Like, it's that type of deal, and
Yeah.
it's the coolest thing.
It's no, it's a lot of fun, and like in that there's like I think one of a really neat thing, and this is always different for every movie, because every director, producer, they have their own different vision, and even like us, just regular people, we
Mm-hmm.
see we interpret things differently. So everyone has a different vision for like water and fire. So there isn't just like I can't just press a button and and make these. That's not how this works by any means, because everyone sees them differently, as you were saying, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as an effects artist, some of the things that we have to really take into account is what is like what are the laws of this world, kind of thing. Like what are
Mm-hmm.
like physics based, right?
Correct.
Some directors like things to feel heavier than they are, right? Like if I went on YouTube and just pulled up like a waterfall, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a real waterfall, if I show that in like in dailies, like
Fuzzy.
someone might give it notes, like I need it should be faster, like like there's never the correct thing, and I have a lot of fun trying to find that, like what are the laws of this world that I'm working
Right.
in, right? And because
Right.
each movie is a different, like when I was working on The Martian, Ridley Scott, there
Mm-hmm.
was working on the storm sequence, where Matt Damon gets stranded, like
Mm-hmm.
that was a whole thing, because like no one's ever actually been to Mars and
Right.
been through a storm. So there's, having like what could this feel like? Because we can base it off of what happens on Earth, but like of course we're on Mars. So like even just with that, um, there's a bit of freedom in figuring that out, especially in the dev time, which I love dev, because that's when it's like I'll
Mm-hmm.
take your art, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, let me show you different versions of how I think it would move. And then
Yep.
that's where like the supervisors will be like, I like how this moves. I like how large this one is, but I like the speed of this one, and like split the difference. Or sometimes they just might just like what I provide, and like you nail it. And I love Yeah, I love dev time because it's like I get to play in the sandbox
Hmm.
before like the big production like push to get things finished, and like that's where we can get all the as much of like the fancy stuff and like just all like that cool stuff like getting pumped out. Yeah, it excites me a lot,
It's
especially
my
when it's
favorite time.
right,
It,
because especially when it's like they know what they want it to feel like, but they don't know what it looks like. And then when you give them like your idea and they're like, that's it, like that's what I want, and it's awesome because like that came from you, like,
hmm
and there's no
it's
point of
your it's your contribution, right?
yeah, and there's no point of reference. It's like there's no you didn't go on YouTube to look like and copy, like that's from your brain, and now the world is going to see that because like and
Hmm.
I think that's one of the best feelings
it's
like
my
ever.
it's my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of the process, is because we all contribute in different ways, but then when you get something through the project that like is inherently you, it's super fun to know that like sure, like at any given point it could have been anyone could have come in and had like their idea, but that specific idea came from you directly, where it's like you kind of changed the course of the path of like where the thing was going in whatever way you did. And it's cool to know like, yeah, there would have been a storm, but like this is the storm that I proposed, right? Like,
Right.
so it's kind of a neat thing. I've enjoyed that too, especially when the science lines up and you find like one particular point of reference or something in history where you're like, oh look, it could be, and it like latches in. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's like a fun part.
Oh, definitely, because it's like it just clicks,
Uh-huh.
and then like I can nerd out about like talking about this like all day. Like it's just so much fun.
Hmm.
Like yeah, even like and like there are some like difficult things too. Like also I really enjoy like the learning aspect and the problem stuff because like the technology improves right every year. So like I primarily effects is primarily done using Houdini side effect software,
Yes.
and I love it. But like the learning curve, not gonna lie, it's like basically it's like it's just straight vertical, and then once you get there, you're like, like it like you can do so much with it. Um, and so on Moana, there was a shot I was working on, and it took me quite a bit of time because one there so in films there are for effects there are sequential effects. So like rain, for example, like if you know the environment is gonna be raining, we'd usually make like we'd build a setup that we could drop into every shot, and then like we would tweak as needed based on how characters are moving, and then that would done we'd use that for like like 20 shots kind of thing, right? Because it would
Right.
always be raining in the scene. A hero shot is where it's like it's a one-off essentially, and uh, it takes a lot more time and detail because you know you're only going to see it once, but it's usually like a bigger moment, and there's it's not just feeling now there's technical and
Hmm.
there's also a bit of cheating in it as well in terms of if I were to take a separate camera for example and like show you the side view of the shot, you would
Yes.
see like, oh my god, like this isn't even like remotely near each other, or like things are not the but in camera it lines up, right? So there's a lot of stuff like that that goes on under the hood, and for myself that was I had not done as many of those, at
Hmm.
least to the scale, and it was really cool to take that on and like and learn and grow through it, right? Like I'm again very fortunate for the team that I'm on because like they really want us to grow and they want like to nurture us as artists to like it's Disney, right? Like they're very like they're prideful on the work that they produce, right? And it shows even through us like being at work, like is it really is a great studio. Like I feel like very fortunate to be on the team and to work with
That's
just
awesome.
such like incredible artists. Yeah, I'm sure your team as well has been uh, nothing but incredible. Like on the projects that you've been on.
Oh, for sure. I feel like there's like this encouraging kind of like amplification of everybody trying to do their best work, but also trying to like trust the process.
Mhm.
Where sometimes you don't get that. And I really enjoy when you're on a team where you feel like everybody has their input and their value. And they're also, I think, just being allowed to be artists, like being
Yeah,
allowed to have times where you're like, I don't know about this, or then being timed like where you have like a really cool fit of inspiration where something really clicks, and finding that and then being able to go through that process with people that understand it and help amplify it instead of drain it is always been a joy.
Oh
a
yeah.
joy and a pleasure to find. My question, I think, to you would be like, one of the things that happens is, especially in transitioning in our career, you moved from kind of doing like kind of the traditional effects and then moving into animation and like these big budget projects. Did you find differences there along the way, like in the way that you handled things, or like did you
Mm.
like what was the stepping stone from getting to the point from the start to like where you are now?
You know what? Like, I find for effects, it's pretty. At least for myself, I find it's very transferable
Yeah.
because fire is fire, water is water, kind of thing, right? The difference is essentially just again how things feel, but like there is also an aesthetic difference. So with animation,
Hmm.
I feel that because they're you're not in reality. You're
Yeah.
it's just it's what like there are voice actors, but like the sets are completely digital, right? Like everything
Yes.
is all digital. So you the methodology of creating some of these effects can be similar, but at the end of it really is it tends to be more stylized, just because it needs to match that world. Whereas if I were to do like visual like VFX and try to match a plate, also for all those a plate is basically when someone films on set like the actors, and then it comes to me in post production, and that's where I add in the digital stuff, and the rest of like the other departments add in digital, just in case anyone was curious about the term. um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but uh, but yeah, it is there's a bit more. It's a different type of problem solving. I feel, and it wasn't so much as like what did I need to relearn to be able to achieve one versus the other. It was more like how can I use. It's like I have a hammer, I know it hits a nail, but like how can I use it a little bit differently, kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
That's like how you have to look at it. And I've been very fortunate to work with really talented individuals who have done both. So I've done visual effects, which is the live action stuff, for the majority of my career, and then when I started at Sony Pictures Imageworks, my first animated feature was a film called Over the Moon, and the
Hmm.
director on Netflix, it was Glenn Keane.
Hmm.
And that I found was it was first it was really cool because um, I had to kind of think a little differently as well, because there's a shot in it where I think the younger brother is like he pushes through like a barrier, and the barrier bursts into becoming all these particles and stuff. And with that, it's not simply like glass is breaking. It like they wanted it to feel cartoony, so like a when he was pushing through, it was like a bubble kind of formed, and then it bursts open, and as opposed to shattering, it like floated away and then dissolved, right?
Ah.
Whereas if it was based on reality, as he goes through, it would just it would break and
It was just
burst,
right.
like a car or Superman, flying through a building kind of thing, right?
Right.
So shifting the perspective on this needs to feel more magical and more lighter. Like animation, I feel is light in
Yes.
terms of visual effects. So that was an interesting shift in thought. But once I got it, I now like I'm like it's just so much fun because there's a lot of storytelling in that. Like in the effects of like it's not just like you don't just punch through or like brute force your way into it. Like you finesse more with
Right.
it. And I like yeah. So I think that's that was the biggest like mental change, was just understanding the weight of the effects from live action to animation. Yeah.
It's just, yeah, like I think that's always a big transition, I think, for artists in general. Like for me, visually, moving from live action to animation, it's almost like some things are almost exact opposite, because I'm used to stylizing things, but getting them to a point where I know that they're going to go on a real body, right?
Mm,
So usually, like, things like pauldrons and shoulders and all that
yeah.
stuff, like when you're doing armor, it's all usually like 10 to 15% smaller than it would be so that they can move. But
Right.
then in animation, it's like 20 to 30% bigger, because
Oh
it's like it needs to be pushed and stylized. So it's like that part of it is like a little bit of a switch in the brain of being like, oh, those
mm,
buttons could be bigger and this thing could be bigger in animation, like more expressive.
right. No,
um
actually it's a great point. I totally like blew over that because I get for myself I found that to be the easiest part
mhm,
because it's
mhm.
like when I'm dialing so like in Moana, like if the waves, like there's a big storm, huge waves are happening, right? So you can cranking that to 11 is like so much fun. It's like I'll be honest, in effects we tend to like we use a lot of data for our stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like when we make like big things, you understand that, okay, I'm gonna do this and then that's gonna just be simulating for however long, right? um but like you kind of want to like you want to see how far what you've built can go, because you can get some like awesome results, and then sometimes the machine crashes a bit just because it's just too much in a frame. But yeah, I think that's one of the most fun things is the drastic like scale shifts, because like it can really sell, and animation does it with the characters a lot too. Like with someone like if you have an evil villain who's laughing, it's not just like a ha ha ha, like the facial features are really exaggerated.
Correct. Right.
So that translates as well, like with effects, and it's also a lot of fun to do effects that are very character based, because like when I get like really like exaggerated animation, the purpose of my effects is to it's additive, right? So
Right.
I'm not taking the story away from the character, I'm just adding to this character moment. And I love when I get awesome animation. Like shout out to all my animators, because they like, because again, like in an animated film it's only voice actors. Like the actors are, it's them, and trust, there's a reason why the credits are so long at the end of a movie, right?
There's so many
like
people.
yeah, there's so many. But like yeah, so like working on Spider-Verse, actually for that, my job was specifically doing there was like I was working on Spider-Man 2099 Miguel O'Hara, and so we did like ink lines, for example. So on all of these characters there are like these outlines to make them look like they've been drawn and redrawn. So like as they shift, it's like getting erased and then redrawn again. So that's what I was doing for basically like the majority of the film, but specifically to this character. And what's really cool is that I did some renders where there was no characters. It's just like a gray screen, but it only had my lines, and my lines are based on the animation, right? Just as like some tests. So you could see like it looked like someone had drew it because of just the line work, but it's all from animation, right? And that was like I just thought it looked so cool to see like that, like, so my effect amplifying that animation. So like, sure, you can see it colored for like final film as we do, but if they wanted to just show lines, it would look like a traditional drawing kind of thing. And it was just like a really beautiful collaboration. Like I get chills a little bit when I think about it, because like I would love to see like a film like that. I remember Glenn Keane did a short, I think it's called Duet, where it's which one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. If no one has seen it, go on YouTube, just type in Glenn Keane Duet.
Look it up.
Please just like it's but it's basically that, where it's just there's nothing else. It's just line work and incredible. So character driven effects based off of like incredible animation. Like I think those are my favorite type of things. Because I also tend to lean more into like superpower, like magic. Like I like doing unnatural phenomena.
Right.
I like doing things that don't have reference.
Don't have reference, right?
Yeah,
so you
like,
could create them.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, so I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something that I actually wanted to nerd out and talk about, which was Spider-Verse, but also specifically Miguel, because that was one of my favorite kind of visual moments, was like seeing that like the line work like not only looks like he was being drawn, it's like when artists are working out their proportions and the measuring of like where things are. So there's like moments where he's turning and you get the little crosshatch of like seeing that like his shoulder was drawn out a certain, like it's hard to explain to people that don't necessarily draw or design, but all of that stuff when watching it as an artist was like just mind blowing, because the shape language is already cool, the proportions are cool, like his longer arms, his wider back, but then seeing the lines that almost are like those Da Vinci kind of like I've been sketching and figuring out where this goes, that was like such a brilliant touch. And same thing goes for Spider-Punk and how he looked like an 80s gig poster. And then you've got like what was it, Vulture looks like a Da Vinci drawing or whatever. Like it's just like such a cool thing, you know.
All of that was very intentional.
Yes.
The team, like the Inklines team, like I cannot, praise them enough, like on like because it's not like those types of effects, they're not easy by any means, because it's a lot more tedious and very specific and precise, because it's not about it's that's it really is like such a specific look, and then trying to make it work, frame by frame. So doing it digitally as opposed to just having someone draw it in comp, like at the end of it and just like drawing over things. The reason why we couldn't do that is because once we finished creating those lines, we would give it to the lighting team, and they would be able to do the colors with it to make it fit more. And because it's in 3D space, they are able to catch shadow and all of that. Like it was very deliberate, and yeah, it was really cool. So like for Miguel, we have like the cross hatching, specific like on his shoulders. You'd see like some lines would overextend like this, as if like those lines like being sketched, like just they overshot a little bit, right? On his elbows and stuff too. When his mask is off, we actually have we put in you have to look really close for it, the face proportion circles, and so like we did that for around his whole head. So we have like cool. So it's circle, big circle, then small circle in the back, and then also eye line circle in there. But we also had to put them so that when you looked at it, it didn't just like cut through his eyes, or like so you could still see his face. So, and the lighting team did a really incredible job just with kissing that element in, as opposed to just like placing it right. Because like a sketch, like you can see some of the lines afterwards, but when color is applied into the final product,
that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like an underdrawing, like the underdrawing of finding the proportions in the lines and making sure that everything is great, and like where does his jaw drop and how does that connect, and like where's the eye line. That you can see it, especially when you watch it on the big screen, but it's like, but it's so subtle, but it literally feels like you're watching someone's animation come to life, or like their drawing come to life. Like it's such a cool thing, and I think it's so subtly well done that I feel like it doesn't, obviously, like it's a testament to your work and to the team, but it, in terms of like, it doesn't take you out of the movie, but it adds such a cool element to it where it actually amplified. Like I was pumped watching it, because I was like, this is like moving art. Like this is so incredible, so fun to watch.
It's amazing effects are usually invisible effects.
Yes,
like that's one of the I feel really good if someone is watching a movie and they see my work and they don't comment on it. That is one of the bigger compliments, because that means that it looked like it was supposed to be there.
Yep.
Right. And I'm like, that is like it's such high praise. So, but like hearing you notice things. So like when you're watching the film, you're just enjoying what you're watching. Right. And then you come, you rewatch it again. Then that's where you're like, I want to see what I could like. And then you start seeing those little things, right? Or you catch them the first go, and you're like, oh, I want to like start paying attention. It's really high praise, especially, and when you're talking about the other Spider-Man characters too, because they also had like their distinct design. Like Hobie, they wanted him to feel, because he's very punk rock, so they want him to feel like that poster, or like he could be a patch.
Yes,
kind of
that's
thing,
it. Feels
right?
like that. It just the feeling of it. But I mean, when you're picking up, I think it also speaks to like, because we work on so many movies, you constantly have to like research, and there's so much history you have to learn about just the world and where things are. And then like with clothing, for me, I have to learn about different fashion points and like when things were created and like what fabrics were used. Like there's so many different things, and so you kind of go through these projects like learning stuff and picking up stuff along the way. Like you picked up how water works here, but in this situation it's different, right? So you bring them with you, and there was something so cool about that movie feeling like it was almost fun to try to see if you knew a little bit of something, of pointing out where that particular style came from, or like what was the inspiration for this character specifically. And then you could just nerd out and learn so much just by taking each character, because they all have a different influence. Like one of them could be like some like old, like I look at stuff like all the time. Like I remember watching one of my favorite videos is from Janet Jackson. It's is it God Until It's Gone? Yes, it's Got Until It's Gone, and it's based off of an old South African like magazine called Drum Magazine.
Cool.
it like see, but it's like a nuanced thing, and then all of the color palettes that are used in the video, the fashion, the like the way the music is laid on top of it, and the way that they shot it. It's
Mhm.
like you look at that and you're like, it's so beautiful, and then you go back and see that the inspiration was like this very specific like magazine that
Yeah.
existed, and like you're like, what? And so that's kind of how I felt. Like that was a tangent to say that's how I felt watching Spider Verse. I'm like, 80s geek poster, blah blah blah, this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
and this and that. Then I'm like, okay, wait, what? And then I'm like, what's this one? And then I was like, is that like from an old Japanese like comic? Like what's that reference? You know what I mean? Like you're trying
Yeah.
to
Oh
like
yeah.
figure it out. But I love stuff like that, especially
Yeah.
when the art, because it's pushing you on multiple subliminal levels of
Oh,
art, right?
absolutely, right. And like it's making, so I think one of the, I didn't get a chance to work on it, but I thought one of the most beautiful things in general. So like each world that they visited, each universe had a different art style to it, right? And when you go to Gwen's universe, the whole thing is watercolor palette,
Yes.
and I I thought her world was so gorgeous because
Mm-hmm.
like even there's one specific scene that I really like. I think it's close to the beginning where you get like an overview of her city,
Mm-hmm.
or she's walking down the street and like the sky, the camera pans down and the sky like drips like watercolor and like the buildings like form up kind of thing, right?
Yep.
And I love I it just kind of like it moved me a bit like just watching like this because it's like someone just like painted this in front of me like and it's not just like the sky, like there is no blue sky or anything, like it's just ink, right?
Yes.
and
Right.
and feeling that, and in the moments when like she's with her dad, for example, like
Mm-hmm.
the palette changes, like
Mm-hmm.
it's darker when it's like the more serious moment, and then like when she hugs her father in that one scene, then the colors change to become brighter, like the paint is
Right.
lighter, right? And it just those little like nuances I like really push like I guess the emotion that they're trying to get across without just like holding your hand through a movie that I feel a lot of movies have been doing lately. Is like they're giving a lot of explanation as to why this is happening, but in this, just based on just pure visuals, you could see like a tonal shift like visually, and
Right.
you don't need to be told. You just kind of feel like, oh, I'm seeing more blues, I'm seeing some whites, and it feels more wholesome in these brighter colors, right? And I think that was, I think, my favorite like universe. Although I will say Miguel's universe, the sci-fi and all of like the architectural lines, like the yeah, you know what, Ty, same but different, like
Yes.
yeah,
Completely.
because like Miguel's universe was all like speed lines and architect lines, and then there was a lot of inserts we had as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the scenes where he's chasing after Miles like on the train, um, he cuts the webbing, right, and there's a flash frame. So the
Mm-hmm.
flash frame was like actually drawn, and like so we froze like one of the frames, gave it to the artist, and they did this incredible flash frame, and there are like a few throughout like the movie as well, but like they add that moment to the moment, and
Right.
I like it's like watching wallpaper, like
Yes. Completely.
every shot could just be like a background for your computer or like your phone, like ah I love it, love it.
It's a that film alone is a technical feat for all of the things that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
the fact that those things are purposeful. And I think that people watching at home, when you watch that film, know that there's so much that goes into it and so much that's controlled and purposeful, and they're thinking about all of these things, even down to like I think I remember seeing something along the lines of when Miles and Gwen have, or Spider Gwen have that moment where they're talking to each other hanging upside down.
Yeah.
The physics of thinking about that, and the fact that their faces are doing different things because you're hanging upside down, like the musculature and the way, like it's crazy to me to know that all of that was like completely thought out and
Yeah.
actually like executed, where it's like we're not just going to phone it in and have them upside down. We're going to think about like what happens to you when you're hanging upside down. Like it's a cool thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
kudos to you for being on that film, because it's one
Oh
of my favorites. I
no,
love it.
I knew that when it was like when I was at Sony and it was announced that was kind of was like I love the first one, and I just
Gotta do it.
I like you got to, right, like you have to, and yeah, there was another film at Sony that I was on that was a lot of fun. It was the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know,
that's a great movie.
right? Like
Yeah.
and that's another, and again another example of like shifting stylized animation. And
Yes.
it it makes me laugh every time. Like even like I did, so like I did a lot of like electricity on that one. So like there are
Hmm.
some like the futuristic, like the I can't remember the company name, but the one that made the robots, they had like these vehicles that were like on a track, and there was some like lightning to connect them, like magnet. So I did some of that.
Okay.
But just as a film in general, like it's like a really good feel good,
Hmm.
and it's like, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like pastel-y, and like I don't even know, like I can't even describe it proper to do it justice, because like
Right.
the visuals are so different. But it does like the same thing, right? Like just pushing the boundaries on uh, with animation and what you can do with it, and how different each one can look and have their own unique style. But like everything is thought out, right?
Right.
Like right down to assets, like creating the trees, or like in, like as you said, like the character faces and
Correct.
features, right? Like it's incredible. And then like now at Disney, um, it was like the same thing on Moana, but Disney has like their style of doing things, and
Hmm.
like their established look. But I still think that like they're in Moana too, like we still like we pushed it a bit, because
Hmm.
there are like effects that haven't been done in that. So um like the lightning, so I did a lot of lightning in Moana too.
Okay.
And so like the big storm sequence, the lightning bolts have these like their motifs, they look like triangles in them, and it's
Yes.
very like Pacific Islander.
Right.
Like the tattoos, I don't know the proper name for them, so I'm not going to
Of
attempt to,
course.
which
No,
but
completely.
but yeah, but like it to make it feel like, because it's really deep rooted in culture.
Right.
We want, like, they, again, very intentional, they wanted it, they just didn't want to be simple lightning. This is from like a character, this is a, one of like supreme power over storms. And to get that deliberate design into the lightning is just, again, so cool, like way to pushing the boundaries, because it wasn't just like creating a curve, like the getting the designs in there and having them behave like lightning, right?
Right.
And then having those transferred to the next department for lighting to do their work, to make it, like with flashes, and like how does it affect clouds, and like in all that look. It blows my mind to, again, to be able to say like I'm a part of such like incredible team, and just surrounded by all these brilliant minds working towards the same goal of just making awesome stories.
Yes.
So yeah.
Give me one quick juxtaposition, because we have talked. I mean, obviously we had superpowers and all of that, and that's
Mm.
like a big part of it. We had animation, and we were talking about Spider Verse, and the Mitchells versus machines. But I want to like maybe talk a little bit about like give me the juxtaposition of that as opposed to something like doing effects for Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, okay. So it's Ghost in the Shell. The stylization is there, but it's stylized in terms of, it's almost like what you could imagine in the future,
Hmm.
right? Like, I love the anime Ghost in the Shell, so I was really happy to be on Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
Just to have my hands on it, it was an honor. Like,
Yeah.
again, just growing up with it, like I was raised on like Akira, and like Princess
One of
Mononoke,
my favorites.
like anime, it holds such like a special place for me in my heart. Like, I mean, like I'm wearing like a Bleach shirt right now, kind of thing, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
so, um, but it going cyber, like, because uh, Ghost in the Shell is very cyberpunk, very futuristic, right? So what you think about in that regard, it's like, you know, you're thinking pixelation, you're thinking uh, holograms, you're thinking like light distortion, like those are like some of the key aspects of it. So what I worked on was there was water interaction with her when she had the fight scene in like a low fountain area, right?
Hmm.
Um, but even in that, like there are some slow mo movements, and just like in the anime Ghost in the Shell, we wanted to like recreate those same feels, and there's a distinct style to even how the water droplets are drawn in the
Hmm.
anime. So to try to have that translate into live action, like to match like Scarlett Johansson on plate,
Right.
like that in itself, as cool as it is, also very deliberate. And the shaping of it wasn't just me making like a water simulation, right? Like the splashes had to be choreographed, right? So I can't, it's not just like someone's walking and like, you know, kicking their feet and we just take the splash, right? And there was another artist who was working with me, who was more senior than I was like at the time, right? And I was so happy to be with him, just because like his knowledge that he brought to it, and he was able to almost like sculpt where things were going to be before they were there. And then as like she would move and like the slow-mo would happen, that's when it was almost like drawn. There were other moments in Ghost in the Shell where she like kind of goes into like the digital world in a sense of like someone's memory, and they look like broken, pixelated characters. And I love this sequence because it's like when you're looking at someone, like as I'm looking at you right now, I can't see what you look like behind, right? From the back. So if I were to freeze you and then like be able to walk around you, there'd be nothing there. So like how to create that kind of style of like broken digitized information. It reminded me a bit of like Tron, like, you know, when like they break into
completely
the cubes
when they break
right?
in the cubes.
Yeah. But again, the behavior though, like, because no one has a patent on, you know, like, oh, this breaks into cubes, kind of like it can happen, but the style of how something moves, that I feel like that's where the big difference like comes into play, even though like their cubes are being used in both. So in Ghost in the Shell, it was like dripping like water, like it was incomplete, like it was pouring off. And then when Scarlett Johansson would walk around them, you would see like they would be like concaved, like a broken vase almost.
Correct.
Right. And just seeing that like drip to show that, oh, it's like it's a fractured memory. She's doing this digitally, so this is what can be displayed digitally. And thinking about that, how to achieve that in reality, because visual effects is live action, so there needs to be a sense of connection so that the audience doesn't feel like it's not plausible. And that, yeah, it's I think that's where the difference in terms of like thinking goes in how to style visual effects versus animation, is that we still have to make sure that things feel more tangible in that process. But still, it's so much fun, to do.
I love it so much. I think it's one of those things that like there's so much subtlety in this. I want the audience at home to really pay attention to the fact that what Aaron's describing is like there's this full job there that like is this nuanced thing that is a part of the thing, and it's a huge part of the thing, but if done correctly you don't really notice it. You're just like, oh, okay, I'm watching this, I'm in a storm, or I'm watching someone shoot fire out of their hands, or whatever it is. You just kind of accept that as a part of the story, not realizing that there's a whole team and a group of artists and people and artisans and craftspeople that specifically that's their contribution. Like that's what they're doing to make sure that you're kind of into it. And so just paying attention to that, because it's something that I think goes unnoticed sometimes, but in the best possible way. It's like it's a huge part that things just wouldn't work without it. Like you can't have Superman without his heat vision, and you can't have Storm without her lightning and how she generates tornadoes or whatever it is. Like, right, those are huge parts of those characters that go unnoticed. And I think also too, knowing that happens specifically in animation and live action in any kind of medium where you're kind of putting effects together, is a valid kind of thing. So thinking about that, I wanted to talk to you specifically about how your department collaborates with the other departments. In terms of like just thinking about like kind of talk through that process and explain like how that back and forth works.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's actually, it's a really great question. I feel that it doesn't get talked about a lot. Basically, the way it works is we'll have like I'll stick with just like a character, for example.
Sure.
You know what? I'll use like the Flash for Justice League, for example.
Okay. There we go.
Because I did lightning on him for Joss Whedon's version, and then I did a bit of like, regardless,
for Zack Snyder.
So yeah. Also, funny story. That's the only movie in my career I've worked on twice.
Yeah, where so you're like, oh, we're back again.
Yeah, we're back again, right? So, yeah. But basically, so like you'll have assets, like they'll scan whoever the actor is. So in this case, it was Ezra Miller for the Flash. But like they'll scan them, and then once they're digitized, they clean up the model and the character model. They give it to animation. Animation are basically, like puppet strings kind of thing. Like they're controlling the movements and all of this, and in the shot. Then it will come to me and also a department called technical animation. So tech animation does stuff like clothing, cloth, hair, fur, and we'll work in tandem usually, unless the effects need to interact with the cloth or the hair, like specifically. For the Flash's case, not so much. And then once it comes to me and I have this character in 3D space and I apply the light, like I make this lightning, I attach it to them, I make sure that it runs and it looks good in the shot and story context. When that's finished, I hand that off to the lighting department, and they're the ones who really insert it into the scene properly. They make sure, like, if there's like a sun, and it's shining on the character, that same light has to affect my work as well, right? So during this process, I like to, and a lot of my fellow effects artists will reach out to the lighters who we know we're handing stuff to, and then we'll try to find who's giving stuff to us, and we maintain that form of communication, and it's super helpful because as shows go on, iterations change, and like there could be little changes when it comes to effects. And I'll use water for example. If you have a character swimming in water, and they're doing like front stroke, right? So I'm making splashes and the bubbles and all that, and that's all simulated, and it's a lot of data, but it's very specific to the movements. If animation changes and I'm not told, for example, when lighting gets both the animation and the effects and puts it together to run it, it won't connect because like the animation will literally be different, and my water will be reacting to something that's not actually there because the animation had changed. So it's really important to make sure that we have these lines of communication, so if animation has an update, I know, okay, instead of working on my simulation right now and the update will be coming in 10 minutes, I'm going to hold off for a second, make sure I get the new publish, take it in, and then go forward with it, right? And that way my work is properly aligned. So really important. And also, we're on the same team. We're all trying to achieve the same goal, right? And it's really cool. So I'm always asking my lighters, like, hey, is there anything that you need from me, kind of thing, right? Or sometimes if I'm developing an effect, I'll talk to my lighter and ask, hey, do you have like, how is your scene looking, for example? Can I use your temporary lights so that when I do my renders and showcase them, they're closer to what may be final? Obviously not as close to that, but like just so I've got like the same, like the sun's in the right spot and the heat and like the settings are all the same, right? Like as if you were lighting a stage, for example, right? And you want to see how this looks standing at different points on the stage. It's the same thing for that. So yeah, really important that we maintain that communication. But like also, I can't do my stuff without them, right?
Completely.
Like they're, and I wouldn't want to, because just like as I'm specialized in my craft, they're specialized in theirs. And as an effects artist, it's we make a joke that like effects artists we can do everything. So like we can be generalists, because I need to understand how lighting works and how to do that, because sometimes my effects, they're not like water or fire, they might be graphics like on screens,
right?
Or like holograms, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And if anyone has seen like I don't know, I haven't worked it, but like Blade Runner, for example, or even even Ghost in the Shell, like the
Ghost in the Shell had them,
like on the buildings. So I didn't do those specifically, but those holograms, like they emit light, right? And they light up the buildings they're on. So when an artist is doing something like that, we need to know how much light are these going to emit, and like we also need to check like how does this look, so that way when we finish and we hand it to lighting, they actually don't need to worry so much, or to the extent of like this is a brand new thing, because they know that it's coming to them, it's able to emit light, and that us in effects have done some dialing so that it is like it's just approved by in our review, so they know that okay, we don't need to like do so much with this kind of thing. And then for animation, like could I animate? Sure. but nowhere near as good as another animator, right? Like an actual animator. Like I could make a walk cycle in maybe like a month or two, but I understand the concept of it, right? And I understand how to do it. Versus an animator doesn't need to know how effects works.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't affect their job. Whereas for myself, there might be times where I might use the curves from animation to do something specific to a character, right? So I need to have that knowledge of or some of that know-how, right? And this is where like the technical aspect of being an effects artist comes into play, but it does not take away from the other departments. Like again, like they are masters of their craft, right? And
Right.
I'm saying like if animation could like if there needs to be a fix, and it's like if we can give it to Anim, because like we just know Anim will do it right, like Anim, like because it's for them. I'm all for that collaboration, right? Or if I'm working on an element and knowing that I like we'll say smoke, and I know
Okay.
that lighting the next department, they're able to dial in how thick and how dense like a smoke or like a fog would be,
Mm-hmm.
right? It makes it easier for both parties because I don't have to take time to like dial this in perfectly because it'll change based on the final lights,
Right.
But it also gives them control, and they don't need to resimulate like I do. They just need to adjust like a slider or a number, and like you're just dialing in settings. So yeah, it's an awesome, like the collaboration is so big, and it really does make like a feature film like all the better when you have like that communication going back and forth between the departments. Like yeah, I can't think like again like the animation, like the lighters, like whoever hands me stuff, like I'm like I love it, especially when it's like because no one wants to cheat in doing a shot.
Mm-hmm.
um of course, if it looks good on camera, then like that's all you really like, that's the goal, right? Regardless of the department. But like when you have that communication and they're like, hey, something, some of the geometry might be this way, right? I'm just giving you that heads up.
Correct.
That lets me know beforehand, so like I can do a little bit of cleaning, or I can adjust and like take that into consideration to make it. Yeah, just oh, thank you. Just like yeah, like high praise.
Let's talk about. I want to switch to talk about the fact that you're talking about a lot of technology used.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any new technologies or things that you're doing currently, or developing, or that you're working with currently that have you excited?
So, I mean, we use Houdini quite often, and like that's just the effects tool. And so, I know Houdini 21.5 just came out, and it has some awesome features in it. And like just there's something called MPM, which is like it's a type of solver that's good for like snow, grains,
Mm-hmm.
dirt, things like that. So uh, I'm always excited to see like the updates for like software that we just use. Like anyone can go
Mm-hmm.
download like Houdini and try it out, right? But it's that excites me because it's like we spend time trying to make it and trying to adjust these settings ourselves, and then the feedback that we give as artists to like the companies who develop the software, they listen to us, and then they try to like build it in natively, so that way in the next update, like we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. It's already there now. And like there are of course every studio has their own like proprietary software that they use, so that's stuff that is built in house that only this studio has. NDAs, so we can't really dive into any of that information, but it is always really cool um, to see, because I've been to a few studios and then seeing similarities and differences, and like how some studios do things X, and then some studios do things Y, and seeing where they intersect, and or taking the knowledge and then bringing it to somewhere new and then having the changes done through that way. It's really really cool to see how things just like evolve naturally because of like artist knowledge, or like experimentation just like outside of work. Like I love having fun on like on my own machine, right? And just like and
Right.
just creating things, right? um yeah, it's a lot of fun. So with that, again, like as updates happen, or like even paying attention to like new graphics cards or things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
like seeing like how can I push what I'm already doing now that my computer is able to handle more, right? That opens up tons of doors. Yeah, like even like using like GPUs for processing at home,
Uh-huh.
for example, is so powerful and it's so fast, right? And for again, like effects, like it's a lot of data, it's a lot of heavy things. Like I want to see things.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never be able to see things in real time, but like being able to do like a fire simulation, right? And it only taking maybe like 2 seconds a frame,
Right.
like that's fast, like that's a lot. And then seeing that just in my display, right? So that's where I think yeah, all like my excitement comes from, is like just as technology advances and grows, and like what do I get now? And then like, okay, I have this new thing, I dive inside of it. It's like a mechanic going into a car and seeing how it all
Mm-hmm.
works, and then it's like, oh, but like, what if I replace this and then put that there? And it's the same thing for my type of work, right? It just to you experiment, and you see all these different results with it, and then like some of them, you're like, oh, I was able to optimize this, so instead of this taking an hour to do, it now takes 10 minutes, and like
Right.
that's 50 minutes. And then if you apply that to work, because every on when you're on film, regardless if you're on set or in post production, time is money, right?
Correct.
Everything is costing. So if you can be as efficient as possible, even with how like you yourself are handling data, that just means that you can do more for less, essentially, right? And that that also excites me, because then I
Mm-hmm.
like for myself, like my brain tends to be like I think really like fast about things, and I always know what my end result is, and like just trying to get there. So having the technology almost be able to keep up with my like sporadic thought process is like is a gift. And like so that excites me in terms of like um as technology improves and advances, whether it be studio, like from studio to studio, or just in general the software that's globally used. Yeah.
I have one question that's going to lead us to like kind of some other ones, but
Yeah, go for it.
which is, when you start, I think process wise, it's important to kind of break this down.
Mm.
Process wise, when you start an effect,
Yeah.
right? What are you thinking and how does that process work? So let's you like take an effect that you worked on and then
Cool.
break it down from the start, like the inception of thinking about it to like what you researched, all the like, what does that process look like for someone that wants to do this job?
Okay, so I'll use, I'll use fire as an example. It's like
Okay.
very rare, very few movies do not have fire. Like there's
Right.
fire. I feel like no movies won an Oscar without fire. So as it's a joke, but anyway,
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
so one of the things, like I'll think about one, like so here I know fire is going to be in the scene. The first thing is what's burning, right?
Right.
So like where do I want it? So let's say it's just like a campfire, right? So like
Okay.
the logs are burning. Okay, cool. So what I'll do is in that fire doesn't just like appear, like it emits, right? And it
Right.
something is burning. So if it's like these logs in this campfire, I will probably put like a texture on like the geometry of just black and white, and have it move, because fire, it doesn't just sit in one spot. Like it moves and it ebbs, and it, the height difference and stuff. So by doing this like black and white, it's like yes and no, one and
Uh-huh.
zero. And it's like wherever is white, that's where fire will be. Wherever is black, we'll have no fire. And that's how you can get, like, you just know you'll get those pockets of things and uh, differences in the fire to make it feel more natural.
Yeah.
In effects, movement is key, because we work in movies. We don't work in just still images. So having that move across the logs, and like speed, like do I want it to move fast so the fire looks like it's really flickering, or do I want it slow so it's like smoldering kind of campfire, right? So like these are things that I think about, is what do I want it to like, what's the feeling, what do I want it to look like? And then from there I will run it through. I'll make it smoke. I'll say, okay, now whatever's white, you will have density, because smoke is dense, and like you need this attribute to go with that. And then from that, I will control the density in Houdini, in a simple solver. Solvers are what we use. They're basically calculators, but they calculate over time. So it'll say if the smoke is here on frame one, and I give it speed to make it, and buoyancy to make it float and then move fast, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then it'll be like, okay, this is where it's going to be in frame two based on that calculation. And it shows me the middle result, because even if I'm moving my hand like this, and you can see like my hand's blurry,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just like here, here, it takes into account the movement. So it's the
Right.
solvers do the same thing as that.
Okay.
And I'm super simplifying, but basically
Mhm.
like I'll do that, and then I'll start shaping it. Like I'll have it play. I'll see how my smoke, my volume is moving, and then I'll start sculpting it. Like, do I want more turbulence, which is exactly what it sounds like, like more crazier wind? Do I want my, like, how flames, they have like licks, they go into points and stuff. So like, do I want a lot of those, a little bit of those? And I'll adjust as I see fit. And then once I'm happy with how my lower quality simulation goes, I'll crank it up, I'll dial it to 11, and then I'll let it run, and I'll let the computer do its thing, and it'll calculate, and then I get my end result. And that's that's in a nutshell how I would approach a simple aspect of like a little campfire. There's definitely more details that go into it. So like, if we're going to shot production, it's not just a fire. Just like out of a car exhaust, you get heat haze, right?
Mhm.
So you do
Mhm.
that element. If it's wood, you'd get embers going with it. So that's another separate layer. So same thing as like with art and like in Photoshop or any type of editing. It's layers on layers on layers, even for effects.
Right.
And I use each one to drive the next. So if my fire is moving like this, I'll take the information from that and put it to my particles to create the embers, so the embers follow that. But they'll
Right.
have a little bit extra things because they won't follow it perfectly. But you'll know, like, you'll get that feeling of it. And you just start stacking these elements until finally when it's all done and you put it all together, you have your cohesive effect.
That's awesome. And see, and that's kind of what it is. Is like it's just kind of like people need to know process and also kind of how you think about it, but also
Mm.
like there. I'm very keen on calling out the actual job to people for like because a lot of the times people see these things and there's a disconnect. Like it's almost like the disconnect you get if you've never been to a farm and you've only bought food, right? Where you're just
Right.
like you go to the grocery store and you're just like this thing's provided to me, but you don't ever make the connection that there's like a whole other job that happened before that to get it to you, right? That there's
Right.
people that wake up at 2 a.m. and are doing things and plowing and actually growing these things and dealing with weather and the science of it. So I think it's good to always break down things because also if you know the job you can actually excel at it and learn and then like get better at it and kind of build on top of it. So I appreciate you going through the process of like what it
Oh
is.
yeah, of course.
And then also trying to figure out now because there are people that are going to be watching that want to kind of get into this. What would be your advice to new artists at like what to focus on, how to eventually put themselves out there, like or new artists, effects artists that are entering the field? What's something that you'd want to
Oh
impart on
man,
them?
no, I actually I appreciate this because again, like even coming back to um, like me in school, like I am so grateful like for my teachers who
Hmm.
put this like specifically like Joe Rash is the head of the program for Seneca
Hmm.
York Visual Effects, and I couldn't thank him enough for helped me get into the program and just so I would like to shout out to Joe. Um, Something that I would suggest is finding something that really excites you,
Yes.
and but like with that though, there's the understanding that it's not easy because and like I know the thing like if it's easy everyone can do it, but like in truth, for visual effects across all departments there
Hmm.
are like for an effects artist specifically the ratio is like there's maybe like 300 animators for like every one effects artist kind of thing, right?
Right.
Like it's very effects is very niche in that it's not just about making cool looking things. There's the technical side of it as well, and I'm not trying to say this to scare anyone. It's
Right.
just more of like the awareness. So what I would do, um, if you're just starting out, YouTube is one of the best things. Like period. Like there are so many times I'll go on YouTube even now and look up like tutorials because there's always someone who's tried something different, right? And
Yep.
some of these tutorials, it's not about like recreating what they did. There a lot of them are really good at explaining like process, like why they are doing things. And I think that's one of the most important things where it's like, oh, I want to make a fire. Okay, I follow this. I've made a fire. Like, but it's understanding how, because when you get to that, like once that kind of clicks in of like how you're doing this, then you're like you look at the tool and it's not just like it's not linear. You have all of these options, and you're exposed to all of that. Like there are times where like you can use in Houdini, for example, you can use smoke and actually turn that into a solid piece of geometry.
Right.
right? But like you would never think to do that. Like, why would I do that if I just want to make smoke or fire? But if you're making fire, fire makes light, and you
Right.
can use that geometry as a light source, right? So like those, like that kind of thought process. So I would say as like a new, brand new artist, explore and don't don't not like don't stick to, but like don't get hung up on looking at the final thing. Like, yes, I
Right.
know, like I do for myself, like I always know what I want it to look like. That's just who I am as a person. But in doing that, I'm not just like staring at like this big picture. I'm like, okay, or like this mountain. I know where I want to go. I see that. Now it's like, okay, I'm going to look down the first step. So try not to get hung up on how big something is or how perfect you want something to be,
Right.
but appreciate just the little steps in getting there. And I think you'll be much more successful in that, because eventually, as I was talking about with layers earlier, it's just that like you'll start at one thing. Okay, I'm happy with this. Cool. Now I'll
Yeah.
add, and then I'll add, and then I'll add, right? Because if you try to just get right to the end, you'll rack your brain. You'll never do it, and it won't look the way you want it to. So
Yes.
I would say be kind with yourself and allow yourself to have that time and explore and screw up. Like seriously, like as I was saying earlier, like break your machine. Obviously, like don't smash it, but like
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
but yeah, like push it, like see what you can get away with, right? Because like some of the most fun things I've ever created that I thought looked really cool were completely by accident when trying to make something else,
Yes.
right? And what's awesome about our technology now, especially in Houdini, is like I could be working on something and it's like it's node based. So for all you who don't know, it's basically imagine like a connected like a ladder or like a tree root kind of thing, right? And you start from one thing and it goes down to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and then like it can branch however you want it to be. And sometimes I'll be working on something and I'll be like, I'm stuck at this point. But if I go up, like I look at the node before it, I'm like, but everything looks good, like right here,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, right? And then I'll play that back a bit, and then like, oh, wait, maybe I can do something like something else, and then like I'll kind of like, like changing lanes, like when you're driving, I'll go over here instead, and I'll start hanging out with what I have already successful and not with the broken thing, and then like as as our thoughts evolve and grow based on what we see and hear and stuff, it's the same thing with work as an effects artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I would say allow yourself to have the freedom. um, know that it will never be perfect, but embrace that and have fun with it. Like make an explosion, or try to like recreate something. Find a tutorial, stick with it to the end, and recognize that it's a journey. There's no like final destination with it. I think that'd be some like the best advice that I could give currently on my
I
head.
love no that, and that's actually really good advice, because I think a lot of the times people are just looking for something to kind of latch onto. I feel like mentorship is important, but also like people need to recognize that like you can get one simple piece of advice from someone that really helps shape like your
Yeah.
brain into understanding where to move or like to feel unstuck.
Mhm.
So I feel like that was great advice. I have fun questions.
Yeah.
A last couple of fun questions would
Yeah.
be like, favorite superpower if you could design one. Like, what's something that you
Oh,
could like where you could visually design this and like take your stab at it?
that okay. That's actually that's really hard because it for me it fluctuates a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I love, even like working like at home. Like I love stylized things, so it would
Mm-hmm.
probably be something that would include some form like speed lines or like the feeling of force,
Okay.
whatever that would be. And I'm not just talking about like like move my hand like telekinesis, we don't see
Mm-hmm.
something, but
Mm-hmm.
like here on um, Eternals, the character Makari, she's a
Uh-huh.
speedster,
The speedster.
right? I love how they did the visuals for like her speed, like the streak,
It's so underrated. It was
right?
one of the better speedsters on camera.
Yeah,
Period.
like, exactly, right. And like because like you feel like the streaking of it, like
Mm-hmm.
the stretching of her, like you just so that's just an example, but like I would like to do things like that really, again, very character emphasis. of like their motion or their physicality. I think those are like my favorite superpowers to do. But also on the side, like I do love me some abstract magic. Like
Yes.
so like and this was tough to work on, but when I was working on Spider-Man No Way Home, the end sequence. So I did a lot of work on the like when the sky shattered and like opened into
Uh-huh.
another dimension stuff, right? So that was like it was difficult in terms of like because technically it's like okay you look at the sky but like how does space fold, you know what I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
how can you understand that like without it just looking flat, and it was a whole thing. But in any case like things like that I also enjoy doing because like again there's no point of reference,
Yep.
right? And it's like how do I imagine this working, or even back to the incredible artist who did the black hole for Interstellar,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Even though like that's based on scientific like accuracy, right? They had the notes
We
and everything, which
still
is like
aren't, yeah, hanging
incredible.
out in
Like
black holes. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Like we don't know
So
what they look like.
exactly, but like I love things just like that I just yeah. So things that showcase movement or just like again physicality or just things that are just completely out of left field. Like those are like my favorite things to do because I could just like headphones on and I'm just like, all right, let's just make something cool kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
those definitely excite me the most.
And then give where, well, let me see. Are there what's your newest or media or comics or anything that you're reading currently?
Oh man, okay. So currently I would say rereading, and I make like I make a joke about this. I feel like Jehovah's Witness like lost out on me because of like I've been preaching about this book series.
Uh-huh.
It's my Pierce Brown and it's called Red Rising.
Ah,
And
okay, okay,
yeah,
okay.
and I can't wait for the seventh book. But for all of you who don't know, it is like a futuristic dystopian sci-fi, and it's basically like what if the Roman Empire was in space,
Yes.
right? And it's got like a whole thing of like there's a caste system and trying to overthrow that hierarchy so that everyone is like there's equality among throughout the galaxy. But like I am obsessed with it. Like I the characters are incredible, but like the world that Pierce Brown has built in it, it's not just like sci-fi futuristic because there is, but it's like it's not just, like imagine a rocket ship like we send them to space and whatnot, right? And now
Mm-hmm.
imagine a ship that was like ornate with gold and like uh it had like visages of people and like like sculptures and stuff like that, like that's the design of these ships kind of thing, and like that's like to paint it so like we're living on Mars where we've colonized the other planets, right? There's no aliens, it's just like where we would be like 2,000 years in the future kind of thing, right? If and like that's the story of it. And man, I would love if this got like it's like if it hit even I think it would be better if it hit the small screen, not a
Yep.
film, just because like there's so much in the books. But yeah, I could spend another like solid 2 hours talking about just these books. But yeah, like those. So that's my latest medium, and that's currently what's been like driving my creativity just like at home.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like what I like I'm trying to make or things like that, like force fields or like lasers, things like that kind of thing. But yeah, oh, so that I hope that answers the question. But like, yeah,
It
love
completely does. It
it, love
actually leads to
it.
one of the last ones too, which is what is your inspirations or like what are you currently working on outside of work? Like what things are you
Okay,
trying to build or
so
what excites you?
okay, so for me, the big thing is when I was on when I was on Boss Logic's podcast, I like
Mm-hmm.
making cool things for my friends to see. Like knowing
Yes.
that I know people who will see my work, I want to make like I just want to make beautiful things for them, for their enjoyment. Like I feel great joy when someone can look at my stuff and it makes them it makes them smile, it makes them like excited. So that's a really on an emotional level that's a big inspiration. On a visual level, I going back to like anime or like my cartoons and my comic books and just books in general, just like because they're things that aren't in our like reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I it's just like what if it was, right? Like what would it look like if it was? How would it work? How could I touch it? How like what would it feel like. So one of the things that I've not recently, I stumbled across it a couple of years ago, Polycam, where you can like use your phone to scan, right? So one of the things I tested a couple of years ago on a friend, she modeled for me as I scanned her, and I was able to get a rough geometry of her.
Yes.
And then another buddy of mine in Toronto, he took the geometry, he cleaned it up for me because it's not perfect geometry off the phone, and then gave the asset. And what I did was like I did kintsugi on her. So like it's, for all those who don't know, it's a Japanese art of filling in cracks or repairing with gold. So you accentuate
it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, like it's beautiful. So I took her geometry, I fractured her, and then I did that with the line work, and I thought it was really cool. And so currently, I'm talking to a bunch of my other friends to pick that up again. I want to pick it up. I think I can do more with it now. Yeah. So that would be like my latest thing. I have no time limit for myself. Like this is just like when I feel like the fun, if I want to do something more. But like that's what's been going in my brain lately. Of like if I were to do another personal project, it's leaning towards just expanding on that. Yeah, it leads me to think of like the Greek god, like the muses, for example.
Completely.
Right. And so I like would love to be able to like capture like my friends wearing like long gowns or dresses to get like the folds, because yes. I love sculptures as well. And when a sculptor can like, when they get like the creases in like the clothing, and you could feel it, I think it's something beautiful about looking at something and getting the feeling that it is soft, even though it is made of stone. And so that's where my brain is currently going for like a personal project of mine. But yeah, so stay tuned. Again, who knows? But yeah.
And Aaron, now tell people, speaking of stay tuned, tell people where they can follow you and check in on your progress. And know, come into your life. How give all the handles, all the things.
For sure. Honestly, it's mostly Instagram. Okay. You can find me at @_Zerker, @_ZERKER. And yeah, I post there. It's, post about my life, post about like art or upcoming projects I may be on. But yeah, feel free to connect there. Always happy to talk, shoot a message, friendly community kind of thing. So yeah, feel free to find me there.
Amazing. Thank you, Aaron, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you were here. I'm going to take the time again to thank our sponsor, Western Costume Department. And also I want to thank founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra and co-founder, the legendary costume designer Marilyn Vance. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever you tune in or listen to your podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Boutté. Again, you can find me on Instagram as Phil, PHIL _Boutté, BOUTTE. It is Boutté. If it's not Boutté, you're not saying it right. If it's not funny, you're not saying it right. And I'll see you guys again. Thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Take care now.
Bye-bye.